Hello, everyone. Welcome to Book Club Preview. I'm Michael, and today we're looking at The Maze Runner, Chapter 10. Now, this story starts where Thomas is going into the forest to chase the lizard animal thing. And one thing that's really strange is that the forest is much darker than Thomas imagined. Outside it's pretty bright out, the sun's shining. And in a forest can be much darker, but it happened so fast that the trees were just so alive and so full of, leaves and branches that it blocked out the sun really fast. And Thomas is kind of like, whoa. I mean, he's running, chasing after this lizard, and he's thinking about this, just following this little red light moving around. And so for Thomas, it's a little scary, but it's also beautiful. The way that the light is shining through the trees, the little bit of light that's there, it kind of has this, mystical maybe, or mysterious kind of feeling about it. But Thomas is running, he's chasing that little lizard, and it finds some tree, and it disappears. By the time Thomas gets to the tree, the lizard has gone. As he's sitting there just breathing, because he ran so fast and so hard for so long, he suddenly hears a what was that? A tree branch that was on the ground had cracked, and Thomas's heart just goes boom, boom, boom. And he's, hello? Who's there? No answer. It's like, I'm Thomas, the new guy. No answer. But for some reason, Thomas decides I'm just hearing things, it's fine. But I'm going to go to where that sound was. And so he starts to go through the forest and look through things. And he ends up at the graveyard. And at first he's, whoa, the graveyard. And we can see, he talks about some sticks being used in the graveyard to maybe make some crosses or something to mark each of the graves. Thomas goes close and he starts to look at the words to see who had died. And the first one, I think, looked like the newest grave. Had a name for Stephen, I think. And Thomas kind of says a joke to himself. Oh, how did you die? Did Chuck annoy you to death? And it's kind of a little joke. It's a little weird in this situation. But it's just that feeling that Chuck is saying something or pulling you into his pranks or making these weird jokes. Thomas likes Chuck, but Chuck can be a little annoying. And he says, oh, did Chuck annoy you so much that you died or that you killed yourself? So he just kind of has this little weird joke in his mind. And then he continues to look at some of the other graves. And finally, he finds one that's actually half glass. And it's just the upper body of someone. And on the glass, it's kind of scratched out. Let this half shank be a reminder you can't escape through the hole. I think is kind of what it says, through the elevator shaft. And Thomas is kind of he kind of thinks this is a little silly for some reason. I can't quite remember, but he's looking at this and it doesn't quite make sense to him. It seems a little strange. And I think this is the moment where he starts to think some weird things, some darker thoughts. But in any case, there's another sound. And Thomas starts to say hey, who is it? Come on out. And suddenly, whoever it was just runs straight at Thomas. And they're kind of they're running fast, but they're not running like we would run. They have a limp. and they're running. They have white skin and these crazy eyes that are just bulging. And the person jumps on Thomas. Thomas falls down and he cracks one of the markers for the grave. Just lands on it, breaks. And then whoever this person is, which we know is Ben, bites Thomas on the shoulder. Ah! And Thomas is like, ah! And then suddenly the adrenaline, and we talked about this before, I believe, but adrenaline is the chemical in your body that gives you super energy. The adrenaline just goes into Thomas's body, and he just pushes as hard as he can to this person on top of him. The person falls backwards. They land on a grave marker and break it. And then Thomas sees for the first time that this person, this crazy Glade person, is Ben. And if you remember, Ben was the person in the hospital, not the real hospital, but he had the marks all over his body. And Newt and Albie were kind of holding him or watching him while the changing happened. And that is how the chapter ends. Some vocabulary words. The first one is foliage. Foliage just means plant life. So as Thomas is running, there's so many bushes and trees and branches and leaves and vines and flowers and grass. All this is foliage. That stuff he's making his way through. Splintered. Splintered is like broken in pieces. I'm trying to think here. If I can give an example. So, I don't think this is... I should have gotten a picture. You can Google it if you want to see an image. But if you imagine on the grave markers, there's some rope or string tied to keep the branches together. And some of the thread, pieces of the thread are sticking out. This is splintery, means like a small piece sticking out. If you touch some wood and a little piece of wood goes in your finger, ow! We call that a splinter. So the rope on these graveyards looks splintery. I mean, it's rope, so it's soft, it won't poke you, but it's still poking out. Repel. This is when he's looking at the Halfshanks box, and they're saying, you can't repel down the elevator. Repel is to take a rope and kind of go down and jump down and jump down. This style of going down a rope is called rappelling. Snicker, and this is like, we already had this word, I think, with Chuck, because Chuck is, he snickers sometimes. But Thomas snickers to himself at some kind of disgusting thought. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was just like, oh, why are you laughing at death like this? And then glib means shallow. So glib is not deep feeling. He actually says shallow and glib, but they're kind of the same word. Shallow just means not having having a little bit of water. So usually if you go to the ocean, you often play in the shallow end, not the deep end. So we can also talk about shallow as someone's character. Oh, that person is shallow. They don't look deeply into people's lives or relationships. And glib has the same meaning. Apparition. Apparition is like something you see and it's quickly gone. Oftentimes it's used to talk about a ghost. We can see a apparition. You can't see it clearly, but there's a little bit there, and then it's gone. Oh, that was the last one. Well, discussion question. While I was reading this story, I just kept thinking, why are you still in this forest? Okay? So my question to you is, when would you have stopped going into the forest? Maybe when the lizard went into the trees, maybe you would have stopped. Maybe when you chased the lizard and couldn't find it, maybe you would have come out. Maybe after you heard the sound, you would have come out. maybe after seeing the graveyard, you would have come out. There are many times in this chapter where I would have been like, I'm leaving and I'm going to come back with Chuck when I have a friend because this is way too freaky for me. But Thomas, he just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. So when for you would be that line to where you said, nah, I'm leaving these scary woods. I'll come back later. And of course, please write your own discussion question. Write it in the comments. That way other people can see it. Also, you can use the vocabulary that we just studied. And if you want to practice those vocabulary words, you can make sentences and put them in the comments. You don't have to do all of them. You can do however many you want. But I will check those sentences and we will look at them together and just look at your grammar or make sure that you understand the vocabulary correctly. All right. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Book Club Preview. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, if you have any questions about the video today, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. If you had any other vocabulary words that you wanted to know what they meant, let me know. And also, if you're interested in maybe joining one of these book clubs, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.